Introduction to Full-Time Ghost Cultivation. Just after his 18th birthday, he was selected as Pei Chuan in the horror dungeon. With the ability to replicate the target's profession and the absurd and mysterious ghost and god skills, head high in the dungeon. From ghostly doctors in horror hospitals to ghostly detectives who hunt down ghosts and criminals, from the ghost teacher, who educates ghosts to the ghost craftsman, who works with great craftsmanship, from the ghost chef, who cooks dragons with artillery, to the ghost technician, who revives ghosts. When he suddenly looked back, he realized that he had accidentally become the leader of all trades, the supreme ghost lord in charge of countless ways. Chapter 1. SSS Level Talent. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Pangshan Hospital. A grayish-white architectural complex appeared before Pei Chuan's eyes. There were 9 people behind him, with different expressions, staring blankly at the building in front of them. Is this a replica? Are you also in the dungeon for the first time? This hospital doesn't look much different from reality either. I heard that schools, hospitals, castles, and psychiatric hospitals have the highest mortality rates. 7 men and 3 women had a worried expression on their faces. 10 people are all new players entering the dungeon for the first time. The arrival of the Eerie Realm dungeon has a chance for all adults to be selected into the Eerie Realm dungeon. In the past decade of terror recovery, nearly 10 million people on the entire Blue Star have experienced dungeons. It is worth mentioning that if you die within the dungeon, it is true death. Only those who complete a certain amount of tasks can survive. Pei Chuan furrowed his brow as he listened to the discussion among the people beside him. He still has some knowledge of the dungeon, but only a little. Compared to the fact that Blue Star, with nearly 10 billion people, only selected 10 million people into the horror dungeon in a decade, he believes the probability of being selected is very low. So, like most people, he firmly believes that he is not the unlucky one. But today he just celebrated his 18th birthday, and he was selected with a meow. It seems that everyone is entering the dungeon for the first time, said a young man in a suit with hair in his 30s. The young man appears calm and composed, giving off a sense of wisdom and strategy. Don't panic, everyone. Let's take a look at the situation first. It's best to form a team and never act alone. It's best to work in groups of 3 people. Upon hearing this, someone looked at the man in the suit in confusion and asked, "Isn't it better to pair up in pairs? We have 10 people here, and it's obviously difficult to allocate them in a 3-3-1 group." The man in the suit said, "Are there still few incidents of stabbing in the back in the dungeon? Do you dare to give your back to a stranger?" Upon hearing this, everyone felt that there was some truth. At this moment, a reminder voice appeared in Pei Chuan's ear. "In turns, please report to each department and never be late. Your department is the emergency department, main task. Stay at the Pangshan Hospital for 3 days and complete 3 or more tasks to clear the dungeon. The task reward is settled after leaving the dungeon. The task is here," Pei Chuan said. He was assigned to the emergency department of the hospital. "I have been assigned to surgery. I am in the gynecology department. Logistics department. Proctology." 10 people immediately mentioned the department they were assigned to. There are 2 other people in the emergency department besides Pei Chuan. Everyone is a newcomer, forming a team will at least be relatively reassuring. A single person can only seek blessings for themselves. Let's quickly report to the department. Right, never be late. What will happen if I'm late? No one can answer this question. Pei Chuan immediately walked towards the hospital gate. The hospital is very large, and he has no knowledge of it at all. He must find the location of the emergency department as soon as possible. Just as I stepped into the hospital gate, a burst of noise and commotion surged in, completely different from the dead silence outside. So many people. The lobby on the first floor of the hospital is bustling with people. Are these all patients coming to the hospital? Why couldn't you hear anything outside just now? Are these all people? Don't be fooled by appearances, it's better to be cautious. Pei Chuan's gaze quickly scanned the patients in the hospital lobby. Those patients all intentionally or unintentionally turned their gaze towards them. When they look at each other, they will shift their gaze away. I have a feeling of being watched by a tiger. Me too. Let's go report to the department first. I don't want to hang up at the beginning. The service desk and guidance desk usually have maps of each department, said a delicate-looking ponytail girl. The consultation table is over there. Everyone immediately arrived at the guidance desk. I saw the locations of each department on the map. Wow, why are there so many patients in the emergency department? A person pointed to the crowded waiting hall on the left side of the first floor and exclaimed in surprise. They looked at Pei Chuan and the other two with sympathetic expressions. You have suffered a lot. The more patients you have, the heavier the workload. It's okay if you don't make a mistake, but if you make a mistake, I'm afraid. I reckon I won't see these three guys tomorrow. Then they quickly left to search for their own department. Pei Chuan frowned slightly. The emergency department has always been the busiest department in the hospital. It's always right to call the emergency department if you have any illnesses, major or minor illnesses, or if you have something to do. The three of them walked towards the direction of the emergency department. Suddenly, a message that only he could see jumped out in front of Pei Chuan's eyes. When entering the dungeon for the first time, your awakening talent is Extreme Reproduce, SSS, talent points. 100. This talent can perfectly replicate the target's profession and ultimate skills. The more perfect the performance, the higher the talent points and skill level can be obtained. After reaching 100 points, the skill can be used again to replicate a new target profession, and reaching 200 points can unlock a new job slot, SSS. Pei Chuan couldn't help but brighten his eyes. He once learned on a forum that talent awakening is a probability event. For example, some people may awaken night vision and see things at night as if they were daytime. Some people have a sharp nose and can smell abnormal odors. Not everyone can awaken, but awakening is like adding wings to a tiger. The talent level ranges from F to SSS, with SSS being the best. And Pei Chuan unexpectedly awakened the highest level SSS level talent. He looked at the other two people. One male and one female. The woman stood there in a daze for a while. The man walked forward and stopped to look at the two of them. Why don't you guys leave? Have you awakened? The ponytail girl whispered to Pei Chuan. It is obvious that the man wearing a checkered shirt did not awaken. The awakening panel can only be seen by oneself, and standing in place with the ponytail girl is checking for talent and abilities. I have awakened my A-level talent, Eye of Insight, and you? The girl asked in a low voice. Let's go, I don't want to be late, the shirt man interrupted their conversation and urged. The two had no choice but to follow up. Pei Chuan was not in a hurry to use his talent and abilities, and planned to act at a later opportunity. The three finally squeezed into the emergency department. Just as he was looking for someone with a bewildered expression, a sweet voice came in. The new intern doctor. Pei Chuan turned his head and saw a nurse with a fair face and a sweet smile walking towards the three of them. The nurse sister had delicate facial features and a pair of rosy eyes that looked at the three of them with great interest. She murmured. This time there are three. The sisters in the emergency department have a good taste. Pei Chuan had a feeling that he was being targeted by a hunter. He is well aware that within the replica rules and without making mistakes, it is generally safe. Yes, may I ask what our job is? The shirt man asked. The nurse licked the corner of her mouth and pointed to the hallway of the consultation room, saying, of course the doctor is seeking medical treatment. Seek medical treatment as soon as possible. If this doesn't happen, wouldn't it be ruined? The nurse led 3 people to the corridor of the consultation room and looked for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, saying to Pei Chuan, "You can take the 4th consultation room." The waiting patients in the hall stared at the 3 people in unison. They have a feeling of being surrounded by wolves. A beautiful female doctor sitting in consultation room 5 next door also cast a sinister gaze. "You go to consultation room 3. You go to consultation room 2. The ponytail girl and the shirt man were also assigned to the consultation room, and were accompanied by a nursing assistant. Pei Chuan saw the 2 of them looking anxious, clearly carrying enormous psychological pressure and not relaxed at all. Especially for shirt men, their backs are already soaked through. He cast a pleading gaze at Pei Chuan and the girl. Both expressed their helplessness. In the dungeon, although Pei Chuan is an intern doctor, he is completely ignorant of medical skills. And from entering the emergency department, from patients to nurses to doctors, they all looked at them strangely. Pei Chuan frowned slightly and glanced at the beautiful female doctor in the next room. "It's you, the ultimate replica." He immediately made a decision to replicate the career of the target female doctor. Looking at the posture, if one cannot diagnose or treat the illness, their life may be at risk. Consume 100 talent points to replicate the ghost doctor profession, yes/no. Pei Chuan chose yes without hesitation. The ghost doctor profession has been successfully replicated, professional level. Perfect. Ghost doctor spirit pressure. Your words carry great authority, skills, mastery. Ultimate suturing, comprehensive treatment of all diseases, profound medical theory, fierce ghost technique, and medical calligraphy. Chapter 2. Ghost Doctor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Today, I will act as your assistant to call you and observe your business skills. The nurse looked at Pei Chuan with glowing eyes, as if expecting him to make a mistake. In fact, this assistant has a sweet and lovely appearance. Although she may seem thin, she is actually quite tasteful. Pei Chuan nodded and walked into room 4. Patient 401, please go to consultation room 4 for treatment. A broadcast is ringing in the waiting hall. The patients instantly became excited, their eyes shining green. Soon, a patient wrapped tightly in a coat and hat walked into the consultation room. "Doctor, let's see how you behave." The nurse sitting on the side had a look of watching a play with her chin propped up in both hands. "Nurse, please maintain your demeanor during work," Pei Chuan said. The nurse was stunned for a moment, and suddenly felt that the intern in front of her was completely different after entering the working state. The voice carries a majestic aura that is irresistible. She originally wanted to see these interns make mistakes, so that she could naturally train these newcomers. But now she found that Dr. Pei's furrowed eyebrows and sharp diamond-shaped jawline were both serious and charming. This reminded her of a handsome mentor who once taught her, which was the life she had passed away. She exclaimed, "Oh," and immediately straightened her demeanor, revealing a small tiger tooth. The S.level ghost doctor's spiritual pressure still has some effect. Pei Chuan observed the changes in the nurse's words and actions, but his gaze did not converge. He looked at the patient and asked, "Where is the discomfort?" "I'm not feeling well in my stomach," the patient pointed to it and said. Pei Chuan glanced at the patient and said, "Take off your coat." The patient was taken aback and inexplicably felt a strong sense of oppression from the intern, with authoritative words. "Your ghost doctor's authority has taken effect, with talent points +10 and mastery of ghost doctor skills +10. A prompt appeared that only Pei Chuan could see. After scanning the prompt, he said with a sharp gaze, "Hurry up, don't delay other patients' medical treatment." The patient dared not refuse and immediately took off their coat. An ugly doll with full body stitching suddenly appeared in front of Pei Chuan. Not human. Pei Chuan's pupils slightly contracted. However, due to psychological preparation, the rationality value did not drop too much. Pei Chuan looked at the doll's bulging belly and said, what have you eaten these days? A month ago, I came to see a doctor who was feeling unwell. The quack doctor couldn't cure the illness at all. In a fit of anger, I left one of the doctor's legs as a souvenir. But where did I know it was a prosthetic limb? The puppet patient said angrily and resentfully. Good guy, this is what commemoration means. However, now that he is replicating the profession of a ghost doctor, patients and nurses are brought into his rhythm, he is naturally not afraid. After a brief glance at the sewing doll, he gave two suggestions. Do you want to use the knife or not? The patient shook his head anxiously and said, no, don't use the knife, I'm afraid. Whenever a knife is used, it will leave a permanent seam on its body, which is extremely ugly. Then you have to endure it, Pei Chuan said. There are quite a few medical tools in the consultation room, and all kinds of tools can be found. Nurse, give me the nearby tongs. Okay. Bring the tongs. Pei Chuan gestured the length and felt it was just right. He walked up to the patient and said seriously, open your mouth. Wait. Wait, what are you doing? Pei Chuan didn't care much, he forcefully opened the doll's mouth and stuffed the long pliers into it. The nurse beside her shrank her neck when she saw this scene, and couldn't help but feel scared and say, it looks like it hurts. After a piercing scream, a prosthetic limb with corrosive mucus was thrown into a stainless steel basin. All right. Pei Chuan clapped his hands and sat back in his seat. The puppet patient touched his stomach in shock and jumped up with joy. It's not painful anymore, it's really not painful anymore. It excitedly pulled Pei Chuan's hand and said, thank you, thank you. You are the first doctor who can cure me without using a knife. The nurse also stared blankly, really cured. You have completed a perfect healing, with talent points +10, proficiency in ghost doctor skills +10, and a positive rating of +10 from Nurse Erin. A prompt panel reappears. The nurse's gaze at Pei Chuan changed. It seems that I have forgotten about training Dr. Pei Chuan. In front of her seemed to be a highly respected and skilled doctor. Pei Chuan looked at the surprised nurse and said, Nurse Eileen, call the next one. The nurse immediately called for the next one and sat obediently on the side. Doctor, take a look at my child. A woman entered the consultation room holding a swaddle. Pei Chuan lifted his swaddle and looked at it, then was stunned for a moment. I saw a ghostly baby with purple-black skin and a malicious face in his swaddling clothes, with a pair of pitch-black eyes staring at him with resentment. Nima, Pei Chuan's rationality has dropped a few points. But it was also within his expectations. Crying and not sleeping can't be comforted no matter how you cry, right? Pei Chuan said. The woman widened her eyes in shock upon hearing this and said, how do you know? The child's bloating is caused by drinking too much blood, Pei Chuan said. The woman anxiously asked, so? What should we do? Give it to me, I'll teach you 2 movements that can eliminate a child's bloating. As soon as Pei Chuan hugged the ghost baby, he let out a terrifying cry. The woman saw this and immediately opened a blood-colored eye on the back of her hand. You must remember these 2 actions. After Pei Chuan finished speaking, he grabbed one of Gue Ying's legs and swung him around at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Gue Ying was swung into a big windmill in Pei Chuan's hand. Seeing this scene, the woman and nurse were dumbfounded on the spot. You! How dare you! The woman was about to get angry when she suddenly heard the ghost baby laughing happily. The faster Pei Chuan swung, the happier Gue Ying's laughter became. The woman remained silent and said, I've never heard a child laugh so happily before. Pei Chuan stopped swinging and continued, holding on to the ghost baby who was still unsatisfied. That move just now was called a windmill. The second action is to spin the plane. Pei Chuan grabbed the 2 legs of the ghost infant and quickly spun around him, as if the ghost infant was about to be thrown out. But unfortunately, ghost baby laughed incredibly happily. Laughter echoed throughout the emergency department. The patients in the waiting room, along with the female doctor sitting on the fifth, all looked towards the fourth consultation room. A child's discomfort is a big deal, and remember that these two actions can effectively alleviate a child's bloating, said Pei Chuan. The woman held the child and the ghost eye on the back of her hand disappeared. Doctor, you are much more skilled than those quacks, thank you, he said with tears of gratitude. The woman and ghost baby left with a happy smile on their faces. Your superb medical skills have been demonstrated, talent points +10, skill proficiency +10, and Nurse Erin's favorability +10, hello doctor, you're amazing. Your diligent work is very charming, Nurse Irene couldn't help but praise you. Take your work seriously, Pei Chuan said seriously. Your rigorous work attitude has earned Nurse Erin a positive rating of +20. Irene exclaimed, oh, and then called for the next patient. Chapter 3. You are really a good doctor. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Room 2. Oh. There's no such thing as having someone sit for a consultation on the first day. Don't internships start with doing odd jobs? The shirt man wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and asked. The assistant fox on the side smiled and said, our hospital has done enough odd jobs and is quite short of doctors. The shirt man is about to collapse, he is a programmer who knows a lot of medical skills. Soon, the first patient came in. The one-eyed old woman who came in was leaning on a crutch. The old woman had a cunning face and a fierce appearance, staring at him with a strange smile on her face. Doctor, can you take a look at my eyes? The old woman lifted her eye mask as she spoke, revealing a lychee white eye inside. The shirt man's face turned pale with fear, and his rationality plummeted. Old man, what's wrong with your eyes? The shirt man trembled. I can't see it, said the strange old woman. The shirt man had a sudden idea and quickly turned his head to look at Hu Zhao's assistant. You can prescribe some medicine for his eye disease, he said. It's useless, no medicine can cure it. The strange old woman suddenly approached the man. The face covered in wrinkles and dark spots was within reach, and he could even smell the foul odor from the old woman's mouth. You go to the ophthalmology department and have a look, the man trembled. No need, your eyes are quite good. The old woman gave an evil smile, and her withered claw-like right hand suddenly leaned towards the shirt man's left eye. The next second, a spinning eyeball appeared in the old woman's hand. Ah! The shirt man rolled on the ground, holding his bleeding left eye. The old woman replaced the eyeballs into her own eyes, and the whole process was as easy as replacing parts. Look! I saw it, finally I can see it again. The assistant ignored the screamed shirt man and instead issued a payment receipt to the old woman, saying, Grandma, go pay the material replacement fee. Okay. After the old woman left, she didn't forget to look back at the screaming shirt man and said, you are really a selfless and good doctor. Room 3, I have watched a lot of forums for horror dungeons, but this time it's a real battle. I hope everything goes smoothly. The girl with a ponytail is praying in her heart. A patient wearing a dome hat entered the door. The patient sat down and said, Doctor, could you help me see? The girl asked, what are you looking at? Big. The patient trembled and pointed at himself with his fingers. The patient looks quite painful and doesn't seem to be hesitant to speak. Can't they speak, the girl thought to herself. She looked at the assistant beside her with a pleading gaze. The assistant smiled with a sinister smile, as if looking at prey. Obviously, the assistant is eager for her to make mistakes and cannot help her. The girl took a deep breath and thought to herself. The eye of insight. What she awakened was an A-level talent that could see through the target's thoughts. She looked at the patient. Can you take a look at my head? I can only speak halfway. This is what the patient is thinking. After understanding the problem, the girl said, take off your hat. The patient removed the dome cap. Ah! The girl let out a scream of surprise, her face as white as paper. The patient has no clear vision and can clearly see the brain. What's even more terrifying is that the brain is only half full. The girl tried her best to calm her mood. Insight understands that the patient plans to come to the hospital to transplant their other half of the brain. But can that brain thing be easily transplanted? The patient stared straight at the girl's head. Oh no, this is because I took a liking to her brain. After understanding the patient's thoughts, the girl's whole body was not doing well. Her mind was spinning rapidly, sweating profusely. Terror dungeons cannot be treated with common sense, there must be a way. She had a sudden idea and asked, "Assistant, does the hospital have fresh pig brains?" The assistant continued to nod with a sly smile and said, "Of course there is, pig brain is also a medicinal herb. Can you go and bring it to me?" Wait a moment. Quickly, a fresh pig brain came up. The girl put on gloves and cut off half of the pig's brain, then put the other half of the pig's brain into the patient's skull. "Try talking," the girl said. The patient opened his mouth and said, "Let me try, I should be able to. Hey, I can finally finish speaking." The assistant's eyes showed a look of surprise. After the patient left, the girl collapsed in a chair. Terror dungeons are also too difficult. Room 4, after cutting it off, it feels much more comfortable. A rough and fierce man on the hospital bed covered his bloody left chest and said with a comfortable expression on his face. "Typical breast hyperplasia, don't eat estrogen-rich foods recently." Pei Chuan casually threw the blood-stained surgical knife aside. "Can't you eat at all?" the fierce man asked. In your situation, a sudden increase in estrogen leads to breast hyperplasia, which not only increases chest size but also reduces size. Pei Chuan pointed to the patient below. Upon hearing this, the fierce man became afraid for a moment and said, "What about testosterone?" Pei Chuan shook his head seriously and said, "It's best not to do it recently. Let me prescribe some medicine for you to adjust. If you can't bear it anymore, you can eat some chicken, duck, beef, and mutton. Okay, if it's useful, I'll send you a banner tonight, doctor." The fierce man obeyed Pei Chuan's advice. This illness has been troubling him for a long time, and he has gone to many hospitals and clinics but cannot cure it. And this disease is difficult to talk about, even if a man's chest turns into a woman's chest, it still hurts him. The doctor in front of me immediately diagnosed the problem with a pulse and successfully eradicated its symptoms. Pei Chuan gave a wild cursive reading in his medical record book, even he couldn't understand what he was writing. "Irene, follow this formula." Nurse Irene nodded and glanced at the prescription in the medical record book. Suddenly, he clenched his legs and felt infinite admiration in his heart. Dr. Pei is cool and skilled in medicine. I didn't expect his handwriting to be so explosive. At first, she just wanted to train Dr. Pei. As a result, he obediently sat aside, witnessing Dr. Pei's quick, accurate, and ruthless medical skills time and time again. I was repeatedly impressed by Dr. Pei's skills and personal charm. Doctors write in both medical and cursive script, which can only be understood by doctors and nurses working in hospitals. "Go to the checkout first and then go to the pharmacy to pick up the medicine," Eileen said to the fierce man. "Your personality charm blooms during the consultation, with talent points +10, proficiency in ghost doctor skills +10, and nurse Erin's favorability +20, it seems that as long as one's words, actions, temperament, and charm are displayed during the consultation, they will all improve with their professional performance," Pei Chuan thought to himself. He looked at Eileen and said, "Let's continue." Nurse Eileen obediently responded. She has also lost her previous perfunctory attitude. On the contrary, she began to care about her image and work attitude in front of Dr. Pei. Soon, Pei Chuan received several more patients. "It's all easy to handle. Your diagnosis is quick and accurate every time, with a talent point of +10, proficiency in ghost medicine skills of +10, and a favorable impression of Nurse Erin of +20, Pei Chuan said to a patient with severe dark circles under his eyes. You should watch less of that movie in the future. Upon hearing this, the patient blushed and quickly explained, Doctor. Doctor, I didn't. You should watch less. Pei Chuan strengthened his tone. The patient glanced at Eileen, who was giggling nearby, and lowered his head in a soft mosquito-like voice, I didn't. Pei Chuan took out disposable medical gloves from the drawer. You come to bed, take off your pants and pout up. The patient looked at Eileen with a twisted expression. In the eyes of doctors, there are only organs. Besides, when you insert a foreign object, you should consider the consequences. Now you know you're shy. You can regret it when you amputate a erosive abscess. Pei Chuan's words were like a needle in the blood, showing no mercy to the patient. Nurse Eileen was surprised and said, even though she spoke from her mouth at 37 degrees Celsius, it was not cold but warm. Dr. Pei's way of caring for patients is quite unique. Your medical advice has persuasiveness, talent points +10, proficiency in ghost medicine skills +10, and Nurse Erin's favorability +10. Upon hearing this, the patient immediately climbed onto the hospital bed and voluntarily took off their pants. Be patient. Pei Chuan stepped forward and was about to take out his hand. Doctor, what are you doing? The patient collapsed. What are you talking about? Pei Chuan took direct action. Ah! The patient let out a devastating cry of grief. Irene stood aside with her ears clenched in her hands and a playful expression on her face, once again conquered by Dr. Pei's work ethic. Dr. Pei is really amazing, he can even handle the work of the proctology department. Irene looked at Dr. Pei with admiration in her eyes. You demonstrate rigor and responsibility perfectly in your work, with a talent point of +10, skill proficiency of +10, and Nurse Erin's favorability of +10, it's okay, Pei Chuan said. Several elongated objects were thrown into stainless steel pots. Irene beside her was stunned and exclaimed, young people really know how to play. Pei Chuan expressionlessly threw the medical gloves into the trash can. Then give a cursive text output in the medical record book. I have prescribed some tonics for you, and when you go back, take the medicine according to the time on the prescription, Pei Chuan said. The patient covered their face and lowered their head throughout the entire process, afraid to see Dr. Pei and the nurse, and quickly recovered. It even wished to find a hole to drill down. Zhaozhuyuan.com, don't watch those movies in the future. Okay. The patient has to leave as soon as they pick up the medicine. Dr. Pei said again, it is the duty of every doctor to respect the patient's condition conservatively. After going out, it is important not to have any burden on how to live. Upon hearing this, the patient stopped and their eyes immediately turned red. They turned to look at Pei Chuan and their voice choked up, saying, Thank you. Thank you, doctor. Irene's gaze towards Pei Chuan on the side became even brighter. My gaze couldn't bear to pull away from Pei Chuan. Dr. Pei, you are really a good doctor, Eileen admired. Irene's favorability +10, ghost nurse Eileen's liking for you has reached 100 points, and her admiration for you have increased dramatically. Irene requests to become your personal assistant, accept/reject, several panels appeared consecutively. Pei Chuan raised his eyebrows and chose accept. Irene's intimacy with you increased by 30, at the moment she became her personal assistant, Eileen's gaze at Pei Chuan was full of stars. Dr. Pei, you're amazing. All these patients have received positive reviews, said Eileen. Later, she blushed and said, you're so amazing, can you show me? Pei Chuan asked, where are you feeling unwell? Irene grabbed Pei Chuan's hand and gently placed it on her lower abdomen, whispering, here. Irene's lower abdomen is flat and soft, with a fleshy touch, like cotton. That's not excess fat, but rather a small body with a lot of flesh. Not only thin, but also material. This is a figure at many women envy. Is this here? Pei Chuan pressed lightly. Chapter 4. Miraculous Doctors and Ghost Hands. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Ah, Irene let out a soft snort and murmured, we need to go a little further down. She unbuttoned her white coat while speaking, wearing a small white suspender inside. A girl like Eileen is someone who dresses with material and takes off with meat. And it's big and white. The button of the white coat slowly loosened, and the fair and smooth lower abdomen caught the eye. What's even worse is that she doesn't seem to be wearing anything. Pei Chuan. Nurse Eileen stared straight at Pei Chuan with a wicked smile on her face. Put on your clothes and don't slack off at work. After finishing speaking, Pei Chuan withdrew his hand and sternly advised, eat less cold food. Drink plenty of hot water. Pei Chuan doesn't have no feelings for beautiful women either. If Eileen weren't a nurse at this hospital, perhaps he had just made a move. He doesn't want to make any mistakes at work and lose his life. Irene lowered her head, blushed, and whispered, she's not that one who came. I didn't say your aunt came. Ah. Pei Chuan looked at Eileen seriously and said, you have eaten too much carrion, which has caused gastrointestinal inflammation or ulcers. Have you been feeling stomach spasms and both hunger and pain lately? Irene's face turned red as she realized she had misunderstood Dr. Pei. She quickly said, yes, I can't bear it when I'm hungry. I only slightly relieved after eating meat. Pei Chuan frowned slightly and said, I'll give you a prescription to regulate yourself. Besides having enteritis, you also have duodenal ulcers. He wrote a few lines of ghost symbols on the medical record book that only ghosts could understand. In the past few days, when I'm hungry, I have to eat to effectively suppress the corrosion of stomach acid on ulcer sites. Irene nodded like pounding garlic. If you really want to eat meat, switch to beef. High protein and high fiber can promote the toughness of the stomach, so don't eat carrion anymore. Take these medications 1 hour before eating, and it will improve your condition in 3 days. Pei Chuan instructed and handed the medical record book to Eileen. Irene collected the prescription and placed an order on the computer. I have actually seen this disease with other doctors. They either require me to undergo colonoscopy or gastroscopy. Every time I see that pile of medicine, there is no effect at all. Eileen's eyes lit up and she said, I didn't expect Dr. Pei to see the problem right away. It's really impressive, isn't it? Her symptoms and pain points are completely correct, even her feelings are described very accurately. Prove that Dr. Pei is right. Moreover, I have seen so many patients before and received 100% positive feedback. This indicates that Dr. Pei is truly a capable doctor. Irene's gaze gradually changed from admiration to admiration. Who wouldn't love such a talented and handsome doctor? She felt like she had found a treasure. The thought of being able to spend time with Dr. Pei day and night filled my heart with joy. Your medical ethics have been recognized by your assistant, with a talent point of +10 and a mastery of ghost doctor skills of +10, your personal assistant Erin's admiration for you +20, intimacy +10, due to Pei Chuan's 100% positive review rate for consultations. Patients in the waiting room cancelled their previous appointments with doctors from other consultation rooms and switched to Dr. Pei Chuan's account. The pressure on the 2 players in the second and third consultation rooms suddenly decreased as a result. During this period, Pei Chuan's prompt panel appeared several times in succession. Your talent points have reached 120, and you can spend 100 points to replicate new professions. Mastery point of ghost doctor skill reaches 120 points, consumption of 100 points can increase to expert, accept/reject, accept. Pei Chuan decisively chose to accept. Ghost doctor, expert, newly added skills. Traceless ghost knife, ghost eye consultation, and ghost hand correction. Ghost doctor's spiritual pressure increased to SS, your words are extremely majestic, and you can also perceive the spiritual pressure of others. He is not in a hurry to replicate a new profession. When the last patient leaves the consultation room, Pei Chuan, who had been sitting for a whole day, stretched lazily and his body bones made a crackling sound. Your reputation as a ghost doctor has spread throughout the hospital, with a prestige of 100 and earning the title of Wonderful Dr. Ghost Hand. This title can enhance the authority of your words, and your charm in front of medical staff plus 50, the moment of obtaining a title. Your personal assistant Aaron's admiration value for you plus 20, a continuous prompt panel appears. Irene's gaze at Pei Chuan also became somewhat ambiguous. Dr. Pei, I was wrong, Eileen suddenly said. Pei Chuan was puzzled and said, what's wrong? I shouldn't have bad thoughts about you. With your excellence, you can definitely become the hospital's most eye-catching star doctor. The hospital urgently needs doctors now, and it is precisely in need of good doctors like you. Pei Chuan smiled and said, suddenly, you have such a high level of ideological consciousness. It's getting dark soon. The hospital is very scary, but Dr. Pei, don't worry, I will definitely protect you, Eileen said, clenching her small fist. Is the hospital terrifying in the dark? At this moment, a white-clad female doctor stood at the door. It's the beautiful female doctor in room 5. The female doctor glared at Pei Chuan with displeasure and said, bring the intern to the conference room for a meeting. Okay, Irene nodded. She seems to have objections to me, Pei Chuan said. Irene smiled and said, you've taken away all of Dr. Shu's patients. Of course they have objections to you. After all, they also need commissions. I see. No wonder there is so much hostility towards me. But with me around, Dr. Shu dare not touch you, and other medical staff dare not touch a finger of you, said Aaron. Pei Chuan nodded, wondering if a nurse could be so skilled. We will showcase our achievements in front of the dean soon, and they will definitely look up to us with excitement. Eileen's face was full of excitement. Subsequently, led by Eileen, they went to the conference room on the first floor. The two of them were busy relatively late and were the ones who arrived last. At this moment, medical staff from the hospital are sitting on the conference table. On the main seat sat an elderly man with gray hair and over 60 years of age. He was the hospital director, and Pei Chuan sensed that the director's spiritual pressure was the strongest on the field. A middle-aged woman with glasses, thick long hair, and a serious face is the director of the hospital's gynecology department. Her spiritual pressure is second only to that of the dean. A male doctor with a deer-headed mouse eye, grinning at the corners of his mouth and playing with a snake-like tongue, stared at Pei Chuan with a sinister expression. There are also doctors from various departments, as well as Dr. Shu who is unhappy with Pei Chuan. In addition, on either side of the conference table stood 5 men and 2 women, each with a face full of fear. These 7 people are the players who entered the dungeon together with him. 3 men and 1 woman have physical disabilities. The shirt man in the second consultation room became a one-eyed Yonghua. To Pei Chuan's surprise, the girl in a ponytail and the man in a suit who initially suggested forming a team had nothing to do. However, it is evident that they did not have an easy day. Are there 2 people not here? Did you make a mistake? Disappearance of 2 people in a day. The next 2 days may be even more difficult. 7 players were also surprised to see that Pei Chuan had nothing to do. Isn't the emergency department the most dangerous department? At this moment, a woman's angry curse sounded. Disrupting rules, grabbing patients, not understanding etiquette, and lacking medical ethics, interns like this are not qualified to come to the conference room. Dean, let me clean up this guy. As soon as Pei Chuan entered the door, he heard Dr. Shu's angry voice. Immediately after, he felt a flash of figure in front of him, and Dr. Shu came to him strangely. The 7 players present also had their pupils shrink. Dr. Shu's hair grew wildly and danced like countless small snakes, as it was about to wrap around Pei Chuan's head. Irene opened her arms to block Pei Chuan. Dr. Shu, the patient's eyes are all bright. Without medical ethics, would all the patients be crowded towards Dr. Pei? Irene said discontentedly. Subsequently, she ignored Dr. Shu and said to the dean, "Father, Dr. Pei is the most rigorous, conscientious, and ethical doctor I have ever seen." "Father." Pei Chuan raised his eyebrows. "I didn't expect a personal assistant to have such a status." What Dr. Shu finds difficult to understand is that Eileen actually protects the new intern. She's even angrier. "Irene, you don't want to use the identity of the dean's daughter to suppress me, do you?" Dr. Shu said coldly. Irene looked up arrogantly and handed out a report to the table. Her little expression was like showing off her perfect transcript. Dr. Pei didn't even have lunch and has been sitting in room 4 since reporting to the emergency department. He has been seeing 75 patients for half a day. Dr. Shu widened his eyes. She didn't expect Dr. Pei Chuan to be so efficient. Her highest record for a day of consultations is only 46. How could this be achieved? Although she is unwilling to acknowledge Dr. Pei's medical ethics, the efficiency is really amazing. The doctor and 7 other players on the conference table were all shocked. They are all doctors who come from consultations, and it is clear how many patients they can see in a day. 75 in half a day, this number is very impressive. The consultation records in hand are authentic and cannot be falsified. Looking at the father in the conference room, there were other doctors with shocked expressions on their faces. Irene's sense of achievement exploded in her heart. Not only that, but the quality is also guaranteed. Dr. Pei's consultation received 100% praise. Although it was Pei Chuan's record, it seemed like Eileen's shining moment, and she was even more excited than Pei Chuan. It's really satisfying to see Dr. Shu's stunned expression. Dr. Shu, relying on her beauty, many male doctors like her and always secretly oppose her. The dean and the doctors present also showed incredulous expressions. Your personal assistant's admiration for you +20, can showing off one's transcript also add value? Pei Chuan glanced at the prompt panel. Empty words without evidence. If you say 100% positive review, it means 100% positive, and there is no rating system. Dr. Shu knew he was powerless to refute, but he still grabbed the loophole and sprayed a sentence. At this moment, there was a knock on the door outside the conference room. "Is there anyone else outside?" "Come in," said the dean. The door was opened and a fierce man walked into the conference room with several patients. Each patient holds a white banner in their hand. The banner bears titles such as, "Wonderful Dr. Ghost Hand," "Rise and Death Return to the Skeleton," and "Reincarnation Ghost Doctor." "Zhaoshuyuan.com, are you?" the dean asked. The leading man excitedly said, "Dr. Pei is a good doctor. He has cured all the difficult and complicated diseases of us patients. We are here to thank Dr. Pei for specially sending a banner." "Sorry to disturb your meeting, please continue," said the fierce man. After putting down the white banner, the patients immediately left the conference room. "The white banner. You really appreciate it," Pei Chuan said in silence. Dr. Shu froze on the spot. The speed of this slap is simply not too fast. Her gaze became resentful and her heart was filled with anger. "Irene, can you always protect your Dr. Pei?" Irene's father was also shocked and very happy. Seeing his daughter so happy, his father also felt relieved. "Father, I want to learn medical skills well with Dr. Pei and make contributions to the hospital in the future. I hope you can give Dr. Pei some rewards to motivate those new interns," Irene said happily. The 7 players on the side were both shocked and jealous. As a player, why is this kid so excellent? Is he a doctor? No, normal doctors may not work in this hospital, right? "Father, Dr. Pei has also cured my duodenal ulcer," Eileen said again. She almost treated Pei Chuan like her boyfriend showing off in front of her father. Oh. The dean frowned and looked at Pei Chuan with great interest. Dr. Pei, although my daughter praises you highly and you have a decent transcript, I still want to test you and see if you are really outstanding. Chapter 5. Premature Life, Such a Good Figure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. From a data perspective, Dr. Pei's medical skills are indeed very advanced. His daughter admired him very much, and as Eileen's father, he also had some thoughts. For example, keeping Dr. Pei in the hospital or making him a mentor for newcomers. Of course, it would be best if Dr. Pei could give it his all. This will definitely take the medical level of Pei Chuan Hospital to a higher level. Pei Chuan said, "The dean has praised me." The dean looked at Eileen and sighed. Eileen has had a hidden disease that is difficult to eradicate since childhood. If you can diagnose the hidden disease without touching Eileen, even if you pass my test. Upon hearing this, the doctors present frowned one after another. Not touching, relying solely on the eyes for diagnosis. You also need to watch a chest X.ray. 7 players were also dumbfounded on the spot. This is impossible to achieve. That kid has already exhausted all his life's luck to get here, and human eyes are not X.rays. The wood is beautiful in the forest, and the wind will surely destroy it. He probably used some means to confuse the dean's daughter, and it's not so easy for him to get by with the dean. It's not good to flirt with someone, but I have to flirt with the daughter of the dean. 7 players all showed sympathetic glances, already beginning to imagine the tragic fate of Pei Chuan. Even Eileen felt that her father was a bit difficult. "Father, this is unfair. I can't even detect my illness with the best equipment," Eileen protested. "Your Dr. Pei can cure others, can't he cure you?" Dr. Shu seized the opportunity to mock. Many doctors also agree with Dr. Shu's statement. That can't be unrealistic. Before Eileen could finish speaking, Pei Chuan interrupted her. "Irene, let me give it a try." "But," Pei Chuan said seriously, "just stand there and don't move." Irene nodded obediently, then stood still, looking at Pei Chuan with heartache. She knew that her father's test was clearly beyond the outline, and if she had known earlier, she wouldn't have said she wanted a reward. If Dr. Pei cannot complete her father's test, although she can defend herself, Dr. Pei's treatment in the hospital will plummet. At this moment, Pei Chuan's eyes were covered with a layer of dim light. Ghost Eye Consultation. The ghost doctor's skill has been upgraded to a new skill after becoming an expert. It could come in handy. By using this skill, his eyes were like X.rays emanating from his chest, and Eileen's entire body appeared transparent grayish-white in his eyes. His gaze wandered throughout Eileen's body. Quickly, he saw the location of Irene's duodenal ulcer. Guitong continued to observe Eileen's body. "What is that?" The ghost pupils scanned over Aaron's heart position and suddenly discovered a clue. Irene's heart beats at a slow pace, about less than 1/6 that of humans. Inside this slowly beating heart, there is a slender, hair-like thing wriggling. Pei Chuan's pupils were even more dimly lit. A smile curved around his mouth and he said, "Dean, I have found it." Both doctors and players stared wide-eyed. So fast. Does this guy really have the ability to diagnose with his eyes? Some players began to doubt whether Pei Chuan had awakened a talent related to his eyes. For example, it can provide perspective and so on. The dean also showed an incredulous expression. "Dean, there is a demon worm in Aaron's heart. Magic worms parasitize between the pericardium and myocardium, and when they wake up, they will suck on the power inside Eileen's body. Although it is not life-threatening, they often feel palpitations. Over time, it will be very detrimental to Eileen's growth." Pei Chuan's words were extremely shocking. Irene had bugs in her heart. Doctors and players all turned to the dean. After all, only the dean knew the answer. The dean squinted his eyes and said with a focused expression, "Not bad, this is also the reason why I have been troubled all along. If it weren't for that, Eileen's growth would not have been limited to that. Irene looked at Pei Chuan in surprise, somewhat incredulous. She didn't expect Pei Chuan to see her stubborn hidden illness through his eyes alone. The doctors are a bit impressed by the new Dr. Pei. 7 players also showed admiration in their eyes. This guy is really capable. Your ghost doctor's divine skill conquered everyone, talent points plus 20, expert skills plus 20, your personal assistant Aaron's admiration for you plus 20, intimacy plus 20, Father, Dr. Pei has passed the test. It's time to fulfill your promise. You must reward Dr. Pei well, Eileen said happily. The dean looked pleased and said, here, definitely there. At this moment, Pei Chuan walked forward and said, Dean, I can take out that demon worm. As soon as the words fell, the whole audience could hear the sound of needles falling. Doctors and players all looked at Pei Chuan in shock. The atmosphere in the conference room seemed to solidify instantly. The head of the gynecology department with thick hair said, Kid, heart surgery is not a joke, let alone the parasites that have been ingrained in Eileen since she was very young. If there is any carelessness, Eileen's life will be in danger. Do you think the dean hasn't thought about performing surgery on Eileen, said the doctor of the Jiangtu Rat's Eye and Snakes Nobuko, shaking his head. Pei Chuan said seriously, I am confident. Looking at Pei Chuan's serious expression, the dean asked, how many are you sure? 10%. Pei Chuan said with extreme conviction. The dean's face turned pale and he said, if anything happens to Eileen, I can't spare you. Pei Chuan retorted, so, what about I cured Eileen? Father, Dr. Pei is for my good and won't harm me, Eileen said. The dean said coldly, I will give you a large reward according to Eileen's instructions. Your words are enough, Pei Chuan smiled slightly. His purpose in doing so is also to obtain more rewards. I need a set of surgical tools and a separate room, Pei Chuan stated his needs. Don't you need an operating room? The gynecologist asked. Pei Chuan smiled slightly and said, a quiet room and a bed are enough. Doctors from various departments are questioning one after another. Being able to diagnose does not mean being able to undergo surgery. Moreover, it is an extremely difficult heart surgery. The players all sweated for Pei Chuan. Crazy, this guy is really crazy. Let's stop at a moderate level. I have already passed the assessment, there's really no need to take this risk. The dean had someone bring a set of surgical tools and open a small room next door. Aaron, let's go. Pei Chuan walked into the small room with Eileen and then closed the door. The dean leaned back on the chair and found Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, holding his chest with both hands and closing his eyes. However, his expression on the face became somewhat solemn. The conference room was completely silent. Players are even more atmospheric and dare not breathe. They feel a bit unhappy in their hearts, but they dare not say it. If Pei Chuan's dangerous move is not handled well, it will still harm them. So the 7 of them can only pray in their hearts that Pei Chuan's surgery will be successful. Although the difficulty of this surgery is really high, it is unlikely to be completed. When the atmosphere outside is solemn, there is a different atmosphere inside the small room. Irene suddenly wrapped her hands around Pei Chuan's neck, and a delicate and sweet face almost pressed against Pei Chuan's face. I know you're doing it for me, but I don't want you to take this risk for me. It's terrifying for my father to get angry, Eileen said in a coquettish tone. Don't you believe I can cure you? Pei Chuan said. Believe it. Whatever you do, I believe you, boom. Eileen kissed Pei Chuan's cheek, a hint of shyness on her small face. Don't make a fuss, come down, Pei Chuan said. Irene lowered her long legs from Pei Chuan's body. What habit, just hug and hug, how can you still get on your legs? If Eileen doesn't come down again, someone should stand up. Lie in bed. Pei Chuan pointed to the small bed inside the room and said. Irene was as obedient as a kitten, pouting her hips and crawling onto the small bed. Lie down quickly and take off your clothes. Irene widened her eyes and looked at Pei Chuan playfully, saying, heart surgery, you must have to take off all of it. As soon as she finished speaking, she finished taking off with a rustling sound. Pei Chuan's eyes were covered in white flowers. Yao Shou, you have such a great figure. Chapter 6. Binding Contracts. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Shirley, the needle is good. When Eileen was diagnosed with a duodenal ulcer, Pei Chuan knew that his close assistant had a great figure. But when she finished taking off and went to the small bed, Pei Chuan's eyes instantly straightened. White skin like jade, flawless body, exquisite and graceful, this is simply challenging the endurance of a young man with strong blood and vitality. Dr. Pei, they are outside and we are inside. Don't you think? It's very exciting. Irene changed her sweet smile to a seductive one. She intentionally stretched her slender arms and slender, fair legs. That scene is simply a deadly poison. I'm dying, but if my admiration and intimacy increase, that's how I handle it. At this moment, Pei Chuan's heart was both uneasy and nervous, with a little bit of excitement. What's the difference between having a picnic in the park during the day? Grass. Don't daydream, this Nima is a horror hospital. There are several terrifying entities outside. Playing with excitement here, thinking your life is too long. Thinking of this, Pei Chuan suppressed his impatience and let out a dry cough before speaking seriously. Irene, you are a patient and I am a doctor. In my eyes, there is no gender distinction. Your medical ethics and work attitude are perfectly reflected, with a talent point of +10, expert skills of +10, Irene's admiration value of +10, and intimacy value of +10. Irene's face turned slightly red, she spat out her tongue, and lay calmly on the small bed without moving again. Dr. Pei, does it hurt? Eileen asked. Pei Chuan took out his tools from the surgical box beside him and said calmly, at first, it will hurt a bit. Just hold on and it will be fine. Irene placed her hands flat and took a deep breath. After all, it's a major surgery, so saying you're not nervous is deceiving. However, the thought of Dr. Pei as the person who performed the surgery on her relieved a lot of the tension in her heart. Pei Chuan arrived at the bedside, and the ghost eye consultation skill was activated. As Pei Chuan's hands gently swayed in the air, holding the surgical knife, he left behind remnants in the air. Irene, my sword is very fast, you don't have to be too nervous, Pei Chuan said. Irene took a deep breath and fortunately closed her eyes. At this moment, Pei Chuan's gaze was focused on Eileen's left chest position. Its eyes were full of dim light, with no trace of evil in them. Fierce ghost art knife. The knife flashed like lightning across the snow-white skin, leaving a small incision. Irene frowned slightly and felt a pain in her chest. Be patient, it will be fine in a while, Pei Chuan said. Use a dilator to open the opening and you can see the slowly beating heart. The ghost art knife features a fast character. What's even more magical is that there's no blood left. Pei Chuan's ghost pupils are focused on the slowly beating heart position. Scarless ghost blade. He gently pinched the surgical knife and it fell cleanly. I saw a thin willow-like white light flash past, and a tiny opening appeared in the pericardium. A twisted black little demon worm appeared in the blood hole. I found you. He pinched it with tweezers and the black magic worm reached his hand. Throw the magic insect into the prepared sealed container. His gaze fixed, and the ghostly light surged in his eyes. Ultimate stitching. Starting to sew, Pei Chuan's hands brushed past remnants of Eileen's chest. Pei Chuan's technique is fast yet gentle. Irene only felt a faint pain, but within acceptable range. All right. Dr. Pei's voice rang in Eileen's ear. Irene's furrowed eyebrows slowly spread out, her eyes slowly opened, and a pair of rosy eyes stared at Pei Chuan in surprise, saying, "So fast." She looked down at her chest and found that there was only a shallow white mark on her chest. And if you don't look carefully, you can't even tell that it's a postoperative scar. Later, she saw the magic worms inside the sealed container next to her. This is unbelievable. Irene covered her mouth. At this moment, she couldn't feel the palpitations at all. And there is a feeling of shackles being lifted, and the position of the chest is unprecedentedly relaxed. Dr. Pei, is this true? There was something sparkling in Erin's eyes. When she was a child, she was actually very talented and was the most talented among her peers. But I don't know when it started, but a demon worm constantly devoured her power in her heart, causing her to be unable to grow and stagnant. Her father had searched for famous doctors and hospitals for her, but none of them could cure her. Helpless, she could only accept her mediocre self and work in her father's hospital. Pei Chuan looked at Eileen with a bright gaze and said confidently, "Of course it's true." "Eileen, how are you feeling now? Did the surgery just hurt you?" Irene got off the small bed and threw herself into Pei Chuan's arms. "Dr. Pei, thank you." Irene hugged Pei Chuan tightly, tears streaming down her eyes. "You complete an extremely difficult surgery, your talent points +30, expert skills +30, close assistant Erin's admiration for you +30, intimacy +30, it's not bad to add some this time," Pei Chuan thought to himself. "Your personal assistant Erin's admiration value for you has reached 100, and her intimacy value has reached 100. She will not disobey your orders and can generate a permanent contract for master disciple and servant." A brand new panel appeared, and Pei Chuan was slightly taken aback. Master apprentice, servant contract. How can one contract with an increase in admiration and intimacy? Does every profession undergo new changes as it continues to improve? Pei Chuan thought to himself. Pei Chuan glanced at the conference room outside and thought to himself, next time, find a place with only 2 people and generate a contract. He is currently in an environment that is not suitable for the contract, and besides, Eileen is still moved by him naked. AI. "Erin, put on your clothes, we should go out now," Pei Chuan said, holding up his hand with nowhere to put it. After Eileen let go, he still felt reluctant to let go. "Dean, I'll go in and take a look," said the doctor of the Zhangtu mouse. "What are you looking at? Are you trying to sneak a peek at Miss Irene?" The gynecologist glared at him. "You fart, I just want to see if that kid is just showing off." When 2 people were arguing, a doctor from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com said. "Coming out." The 2 walked out of the small room. "This is the demon worm that parasitizes in the heart." Pei Chuan placed the sealed container on the conference table. Everyone present was staring closely at the demon bug. Did Dr. Pei really succeed? They looked at Eileen. Eileen not only had no postoperative pain, but also had a smile on her face, and her spiritual pressure seemed to have increased slightly. "Father, Dr. Pei has cured my illness," Eileen said happily. The dean walked forward and placed his hand on Eileen's wrist. A few seconds later, he widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Pei Chuan. "Did you really do it, kid?" "Father, now believe in Dr. Pei's medical skills," Eileen said happily. "Believe, believe." The dean laughed, his old face bathed in spring breeze. "If the hospital has a luxurious suite, reward Dr. Pei to stay," said the dean. Irene chuckled and whispered in Pei Chuan's ear, "That suite is right next to their dormitory." 7 players are almost envious and crying. They were assigned apartment dormitories, 1 small single room per person, without even a toilet, and they had to go to the end of the hallway to use the toilet at night. This Nima is a horror hospital. "Father, you're too stingy, right? This is not a reward. Luxury suites are temporary, so you have to give some physical rewards anyway," Erin pouted coquettishly. Okay. The dean was in a good mood, and with a flick of his hand, an object emitting blue light flew towards Pei Chuan. Pei Chuan caught it with both hands and widened his eyes. What is this? Chapter 7. Resident Hospital, Visiting Sun.in.law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The blue glowing object was held in the hand, making it stand out as a shiny silver surgical knife. A line of prompts appeared in Pei Chuan's eyes. Weapon. Shadowless surgical knife, quality. Excellent, effect. Invisible to others, only visible to you is the surgical knife. It can break hair and cut iron like mud, extremely sharp. It is said that when used to attack people, even wounds cannot be found. Note. Equipment level. Normal, high quality, excellent, rare, epic, legend. The surgical knife can also be considered a weapon, Pei Chuan thought to himself. He didn't expect the dean to reward him with a piece of equipment, and it was also a weapon. Although it is not like conventional weapons, it still gives it the ability to protect itself. And this weapon is quite special. Only the holder can see it. The 7 players on the side envied Kuiner for turning purple. One by one, they widened their eyes to see what Pei Chuan had gained, but couldn't see clearly. Seeing Eileen and thinking of their own assistant, their teeth are almost biting apart. Father is too stingy, just give me one. I'll go to his little treasure trove and steal it for you, Eileen whispered in Pei Chuan's ear. Pei Chuan. This daughter is truly biological. Afterwards, the dean discussed 3 points about the work of the intern doctor and the hospital. The leader's speech is characterized by proficiency, with 3 points and 3 points. Are you all hungry? Let's go to the cafeteria for dinner. Let's end the meeting. Just as Pei Chuan was growling with hunger, the meeting finally came to an end. The cafeteria is not far away. It's only a few steps away. After arriving at the cafeteria, the doctors went to make their own meals. But the players were all dumbfounded one by one. Nima, is this what people eat? I'm really going to vomit. Looking at the row of food in the shop window, the 7 players looked like pig liver. Finally, they searched around and only saw potatoes to eat. I'm too hungry. If I don't eat, I'll starve to death. The gaze of the medical staff in every cafeteria is intentionally or unintentionally directed towards them. On the other side, in the elegant room of French window. Dr. Pei, I'm afraid you won't get used to our food, so I specifically asked the kitchen to prepare what you can eat. Dang dang dot. Irene will lift the lid off the dining car. Sirloin steak, gastrodia pig heart soup, curry chicken chop, Dr. Pei, these materials are all made from fresh livestock and you can eat them. Pei Chuan nodded and carefully tasted it. The taste is good, and it is indeed the taste of steak. Then, he ate it in big gulps. Don't you eat? Pei Chuan asked. Hee, it's okay if they don't eat, Eileen said. Eileen is now very considerate of Pei Chuan, not only arranging a private room, but also personally serving dishes for Pei Chuan. Dr. Pei, please eat slowly. People eat too quickly and cause ulcers. Come on, I'll make soup for you, blow it. Ha 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 ha, in the corner of the cafeteria. The shadow of the light covered half of Dr. Shu's face, and her gaze was gloomy as she gazed at the 2 people in the room. Pooh. She smeared the red liquid from her mouth and said angrily. The cafeteria is using expired drinks today, so wait for a complaint. She was extremely frustrated in her heart, holding a fork and thrusting at the bloody meat cutlet on the plate, her gaze becoming increasingly fierce. Her gaze quickly swept over the intern in another corner. This is not fresh ingredients. The 7 players in the corner were nervously gnawing on the potatoes. Did that kid awaken any talent? No talent can treat horror dungeons as love games to play. 7 people nodded without hesitation. 2 players haven't appeared yet, I'm afraid they are walking on thin ice in the dungeon, and even a slight mistake can put their lives at risk. But Pei Chuan sat in the elegant room, with the dean's daughter beside him personally serving. Dr. Pei, eating some fruits after meals is beneficial for promoting absorption. Irene personally fed the peeled apples to Pei Chuan's mouth. Seeing this scene, the 7 players almost gritted their teeth. As players, there is a difference between hell and heaven. I'm not letting anyone play anymore. Apartment VIP suite. Dr. Pei, are you still satisfied with this room? Looking at the room that looked like a 5-star hotel suite, Pei Chuan nodded and said, "It's very nice." The dean took out an invitation letter from his arms and handed it to Pei Chuan. "What is this?" Dean AI smiled slightly and said, "In the past, our hospital has also hired batches of interns from outside, but there are very few outstanding talents like Dr. Pei. No, they are rare. This is our hospital's special invitation letter, hoping that Dr. Pei can stay at our hospital permanently. You don't have to worry about compensation, you can just make your request. Resident hospital. Isn't it necessary to stay in this terrifying dungeon forever?" Pei Chuan thought for a moment and said, "Sorry, Dean AI, can you allow me some time to consider? I will reply to you in 7 days. After surviving for 3 days, he will be able to escape from the dungeon. 7 days is just an extension of the decision-making time, during which he can change his decision at any time or withdraw at any time." "Alright," Dean AI nodded and looked at Eileen, saying, "Eileen has been playful and mischievous since childhood. I hope to learn from Dr. Pei and make progress. If Eileen can lead her own life under Dr. Pei's guidance in the future, I can consider making Dr. Pei my son-in-law. Father." Irene blushed and turned her head, afraid to look into Pei Chuan's eyes. Pei Chuan was taken aback for a moment, but still responded with a smile, "Dean AI, please rest assured that I will definitely teach Eileen well. Okay, I won't disturb your rest. Please walk slowly." Closing the door, Pei Chuan's smile disappeared. Resident hospital. Visiting son-in-law. He is also required to impart his medical skills to each other. "You think so beautifully, old man. Is the AI family still an amazing family in the world of terror?" Pei Chuan finally understood. Zhaoshuyuan.com Dean AI looks dignified and honest, with a heart full of unique qualities. Is it okay to focus on a free prostitute? As far as he knows, the players left in the horror dungeon have almost no good ending and have never returned to the real world. Anyway, whatever he says in 3 days, he has to leave the dungeon. No matter what conditions Dean AI offers. After a brief rest, I watched TV for a while. There seems to be a crime-themed TV drama playing on TV. The content seen on TV is not much different from what is seen in reality. I wonder if my talent can replicate the professions of characters on TV. Pei Chuan just thought for a moment and then went to take a shower. While taking a shower, he looked at the prompt panel in front of him. Talent point. 180, 200 points can open a new career slot and equip simultaneously, not reached, expert skill points. 80, master can be upgraded if skill points reach 200, not reached. The profession of ghost doctor can be found in hospitals, but in the event of a non-medical crisis, career restrictions become tight. We need to unlock more professions as soon as possible in order to greatly improve our survival chances. After taking a shower, Pei Chuan wiped his wet hair and walked to the bedroom wrapped in a towel. As soon as he arrived at the bedside, his eyes widened like copper bells. I saw Irene wearing a light yellow sheer camisole nightgown, with a large expanse of snow-white skin exposed on her chest. Her fair and slender lotus arms supported her forehead, lying on the bed in a lazy posture, both charming and sexy. Pei Chuan looked down. The tiger's body trembled. Nima, this little girl has come prepared. Surprisingly wearing black silk. Chapter 8. What kind of ghosts are all underworld professions? You are listening at novel full.audio. Shouldn't it be too late? The close nurse is simply lifting the seal of the mighty dragon time and time again. Suspended skirt plus black silk. For a spirited young man, it is simply incredibly deadly. Pei Chuan suppressed the impulse in his heart and asked, "Aaron, how did you come in?" Irene rubbed her long black legs and said in a lazy tone, "I can't sleep after taking a shower. I want to talk to Dr. Pei. Let's have a chat. This sets the rhythm for sleeping with him." "Okay, what do you want to talk about?" Pei Chuan said seriously. He happened to be considering the matter of the contract. From Eileen's gradually increasing spiritual pressure, it can be seen that her power suppressed by the parasite is recovering and is likely to break through the existing power class. I think Eileen should also be a strong presence. Irene rolled from the head of the bed to the end of the bed, propping her chin with one hand and revealing her slender swan neck. She looked up and said, "Dr. Pei, if you don't want to become your son.in.law, then I will persuade my father to let you go." In fact, she was still very tempted, especially when her father said he wanted Pei Chuan to be his son.in.law. In that case, she can be with Dr. Pei forever. But she knew very well that Dr. Pei would eventually leave, just a brief passerby in her life. She now has admiration, love, and respect for Dr. Pei. Sometimes one can guess Dr. Pei's thoughts. Pei Chuan was slightly stunned, stopped wiping his hair, and gently stroked Eileen's hair with his hand. "Irene, are you willing to become my disciple? Apprentice?" Irene's face lit up with a joyful smile. Yes, of course Aaron would. Pei Chuan directly initiated a contract application with Eileen. "Your bond with your personal assistant Aaron takes effect. Initiate the master-apprentice contract, accept/reject, accept." Just as the prompt box appeared, Eileen immediately shouted out. Obviously, when generating the contract, Eileen can also see the prompt box. Binding in effect. The master-apprentice contract has been opened. Irene, the witch of the spell, becomes your first disciple. Binding effect. Players can enjoy a 10% bonus on all attributes of the contract disciple. The higher the binding point, the more interaction and unexpected surprises can be opened. You gain 20 talent points, 20 expert skills, and 30 master-disciple bonds. Several rows of panel prompts appeared in front of Pei Chuan one after another. Can bonds share power? Pei Chuan's eyes lit up. A witch of spells. Eileen smiled slightly and gently wrapped her hands around Pei Chuan's neck, exhaling like a orchid. In fact, every magical witch in our world is an extremely excellent pharmacist, also known as a deadly poison, charming and dangerous. Are we here? You're talking about a terrifying world. Although I don't know what the ingredients of a witch are, nor do I know what category it belongs to in the world of terror. But it's better than nothing. And the demon worm in Eileen's heart has been cleared. Eileen's future strength is far more than that. I didn't expect that the master not only looks handsome, but also manages his figure so well. Irene's rosy eyes were shining, staring straight at Pei Chuan's upper body. "Irene, don't make a fuss. It's time to go back to sleep," Pei Chuan said seriously. "Hee, but people are afraid when they sleep alone." Pei Chuan glared at him, pretending to be angry. "Hee, okay, I'll go back to sleep. Good night, master." Irene smiled happily as she climbed out of bed and said, "By the way, there is a round of rooms in the apartment at midnight. No matter what you hear after the round, don't open the door. But master, don't worry. You are a VIP suite guest and they won't check here." After speaking, Eileen hurriedly slipped out. Still conducting rounds. Is this a regular ward round? In a certain dormitory of the apartment. Just now, I saw on the regulations of the apartment downstairs that there is a night round, said the man in a suit with 3 or 7/10 of hair. 7 players gathered in this dormitory. They discussed strategies to deal with and reviewed the problems encountered during the consultation. Is it a serious ward round? Asked the man. The answer is clear to everyone. The rules for ward rounds are actually similar to those in university dormitories. As long as they are within the rules and do not make mistakes, they are generally safe, said the man in a suit to everyone. It's okay to check the room, carefully examine any details of the dormitory, and follow the rules. I'm afraid there may be other tricks after checking the room, said the girl with a ponytail. Yeah, that kid's lucky. It seems like there's no need to check the VIP suite. You have the ability to find a female nurse to serve you. The man in the suit said, it's time to go back. We'll start the round soon. They were assigned a room for each person, originally intended to huddle together for warmth. After the apartment rules were in place, it became apparent that forming a group would not work. They discussed a lot and also thought of many possible accidents. Everyone remembers it in their hearts. Damn it, this corridor is terrifying. Did anyone go to take a shower together? Are you serious? I'm joking. The public bathroom is at the end of the corridor. But everyone is not a fool. This dark hallway is scary enough, why go to the public bathroom to take a shower? Players gradually find their dormitories according to their door numbers. I'm here. The ponytail girl said to the shirt man. As the dormitory door closed, the entire corridor fell into pitch black. That is a kind of black that seems to be unable to dissolve with thick ink, and just staring at it gives people a creepy feeling. The shirt man's dormitory is at the end of the corridor, opposite the public bathroom. Looking back, the corridor behind me was pitch black and silent, with gusts of gloomy wind. The shirt man's Adam's apple twitched and he immediately mustered up the courage to move forward. Actually, just as the players gathered together, he realized that some of them had awakened their talents. The man in a suit, the girl in a ponytail, and the other two have all awakened their talents. If nothing unexpected happens, the guy living in the VIP room has also awakened his talent. But he didn't wake up. He also became a one-eyed Yonghua. On the first day, he was disabled. How can we spend these 2 more days? Trembling, he arrived at the entrance of the dormitory. Just as he was about to take out the key to open the door, he heard the sound of water dripping from the public bathroom behind him. The sound of dripping water was unusually piercing in this dead corridor. It's all hallucinations and auditory hallucinations, don't try to scare me. The shirt man quickly took out the key. The moment he opened the door, he froze on the spot. A hair wall composed of countless hairs appeared in front of him. Is there hair all over the dormitory? The shirt man suddenly realized something and turned his head to run. But it was still one step late, and a pair of pale hands suddenly stretched out from the hair wall, hugging his face in an instant. The shirt man didn't even have time to let out a scream, so he was dragged into the wall of the dormitory. Bang! The dormitory door slammed shut heavily. Zhaoshuyuan.com. The dripping sound in the public bathroom gradually disappeared. A dead silence, the corridor plunged into darkness. In the VIP suite, Pei Chuan sat on the bed with a shadowless surgical knife in his hand, gesturing a few times towards the air, with a sharp gleam in his eyes. Small and exquisite, shadowless and traceless, it kills invisibly. He plans to sleep with a shadowless surgical knife. It is almost impossible to sleep peacefully in a world of terror. Even in a VIP suite, he doesn't need to check rooms, he still needs to be cautious and prepared. He picked up the remote control and was about to turn off the TV. Suddenly, an idea came to mind. At this moment, a detective is playing on TV as he deduces the true culprit at the crime scene. He slowly put down the remote control. After completing the master-apprentice contract, his talent points reached 200 points. 200 points can open a new career slot and equip 2 professions at the same time. But currently he only has 1 profession and cannot equip 2 at the same time. It's better to replicate another profession and increase your self-protection ability. Anyway, you can switch equipment between career slots. Pei Chuan's eyes fixed on the detective on the TV. It's you, the ultimate replica. Consume 100 talent points to replicate the ghost detective profession, yes/no, a line of prompt boxes popped up. Sleeping in bed, it's really possible. Pei Chuan was overjoyed. This means that in the future, he will no longer need to search for a living goal to activate his talent to replicate his profession. It can be reproduced from television, brochures, magazines, and videos, as long as there is a suitable profession. Wait, these are all underworld professions. What kind of ghosts? Chapter 9. Ghost Detectives. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No matter what profession I replicate, I will eventually become an underworld profession. In Pei Chuan's view, what is played on the TV is no different from what he sees in the real world. The profession that can be replicated is ghost detective. Is it a ghost detective? He was not in a hurry to replicate, but rather considering whether to use his talent points in key areas. For example, if he suddenly needs to go and paint, he doesn't know how to do it. He can temporarily replicate a ghost painter. To play, one can replicate a ghostly musician. But this all belongs to replicating what you encounter. If encountering situations that cannot be replicated, one may fall into danger. It's better to plan ahead early. There are 200 talent points, one ghost detective can be replicated, and there are still 100 points left. It can also be replicated once. Thinking of this, Pei Chuan decisively replicated the ghost detective profession. Yes. The ghost detective profession has been perfectly replicated successfully, professional level. Perfect, ghost detective insight. S.level, staring at the target can make them feel nervous and uneasy, giving them a feeling of being seen through a secret. Skills, mastery. Sniff the spirit nose, detect the eye of the ghost, detect lies, recall memory, and know the leopard through spectacular spots. Currently, Pei Chuan only has one career opportunity. Remove the ghost doctor profession in order to equip the ghost detective profession. If you are in the hospital during the day, the ghost detective's professional skills should be able to discover many details that have not been discovered. After seeing the skills of ghost detectives, Pei Chuan was quite satisfied. Later, he turned off the TV. Glancing at the door, turning off the lights and falling asleep. Not long after, a faint snoring sounded in the suite. At the entrance of the suite, a strand of black hair slowly crawled in through the crack of the door. More hair burrowed into the house through the crack in the door. Countless are the hair condensed into a female figure. Gradually transformed into a beautiful woman. A pair of jade feet lightly stepped on the soft carpet. A purple smoke skirt danced with the graceful figure of the woman on her slender long legs. Slender hair burrowed into the waist-length waterfall black hair like a small snake. A pair of purple eyes on her stunning features stared fiercely at the big bed. This person is Dr. Shu. At this moment, she lost her cold and serious demeanor of wearing a white coat in the daytime, and after changing into her own pajamas, she gained a touch of fairy-like and noble temperament. She came to the big bed and lifted her lotus arm lightly. A few strands of hair immediately condensed into a black-haired sword in front of her. Dr. Shu's beautiful eyes flashed with a sharp gleam. The black-haired sword fiercely pierced into the raised bedding. But when a cluster of cotton wool fluttered up from the bedding, she furrowed her brows tightly. She suddenly lifted the bedding and saw two pillows standing upright underneath. Oh no, I was deceived. Dr. Shu's face changed. You'd better not move, it can easily cut open your delicate throat. Suddenly, a cold object pressed against her neck. Pa-da-dot. The lights lit up and Pei Chuan appeared by the bed. Dr. Shu could feel the sharp surgical knife in Pei Chuan's hand. The dean actually gave you the invisible surgical knife. Dr. Shu said in shock. The black-haired sword hovered around her like a hunting cobra, as if ready to launch an attack at any moment. Do you think your hair is fast or my surgical knife is fast? Pei Chuan said with a slight curl of his mouth. The invisible surgical knife in his hand is not only a surgical tool, but also a weapon that can be used in horror dungeons. He accidentally glanced at the door before going to bed. Due to being equipped with the ghost detective profession, the skill ghost eye immediately activated and saw a strand of hair under the door crack at a glance. The skill of peeping through the spot and knowing the leopard allows him to instantly determine who the owner of the hair is. This is the scene where Dr. Shu fell into the trap and Pei Chuan took the lead. Do you know I will come? Dr. Shu asked with a surprised expression on his face. I can't hide my gaze even if you want to stab me. Waiting until I fall asleep late at night is the best time to start. Is that hard to guess? Pei Chuan said. She suffered a lot of anger in the hospital today. In the past, no one cared about how to deal with these external interns. But this time Pei Chuan actually stepped on her head and gave her a few big mouths. She had planned to fiercely regain her presence here, torturing Pei Chuan bit by bit. She even thought of the scene of trampling on him as a slave and brutally trampling on him. Only in this way can she relieve her anger fiercely. Finally, let Eileen see Dr. Pei, whom she admired, being trained into slavery. Irene will definitely go crazy. Now her plan is not only unfulfilled, but also constrained by others. Even if I kill you here, the dean won't blame me. Pei Chuan's eyes showed a murderous intent. Dr. Shu furrowed his brows tightly, and Xian's gaze stared at Pei Chuan indifferently. You dare not. Pei Chuan smiled slightly and said, what dare I not do? An assassin broke into the VIP suite, and I managed to survive by killing the assassin in self-defense. I didn't complain to the dean about the safety of the suite, so it's fine. Does he still dare to blame me? The dean may not blame you, but other doctors will definitely not let you go, Dr. Shu said. Pei Chuan gave a cold smile and said, oh. If Dr. Shu evaporates from the human world, how can your licking dogs avenge you? How dare you? Dr. Shu's body trembled noticeably, and she began to feel a little afraid of this new doctor in her heart. Don't forget that I'm a doctor with the ability to flush things into the sewer without leaving any traces. Pei Chuan spoke with a heavier tone and a stronger killing intent in his eyes. Dr. Shu's delicate body trembled, and fear appeared in his eyes. Her gaze at Pei Chuan was like a rabbit meeting a fierce tiger. Zhaozuiyuan.com, your ghost detective profession has intimidated Shuna, talent points plus 30, skill mastery plus 30, reverence from Dr. Shuna plus 30, seeing a line of prompts popping up in front of him, Pei Chuan's mouth curved into a cold smile. Shuna was afraid and regretted sneaking into this room. We should not provoke this human. She developed a fear of humanity for the first time. Her biggest reliance in the hospital is not actually on the dean, but on those suitors who admire her appearance. It can be said that more than half of the male doctors at the entire Panshan hospital admire her. She has never suffered unfair treatment in the hospital, because a male doctor cleared many obstacles for her. If she could get out of this suite, perhaps she would have a chance to turn things around. If she can't leave, then she is very likely to disappear directly from this world, and her licking dogs cannot avenge her, or even suspect Pei Chuan. Thinking of this, her heart trembled. This human madman really could make her disappear from this world. Pei Chuan smiled coldly, and Dr. Shuna's expression and micro-expression were completely captured in her eyes. Dr. Shuna is really scared. However, Pei Chuan believes that it is not enough. We need another dose of strong medicine. Only then can this ruthless doctor be completely subdued. Ward rounds. At this moment, the sound of the housekeeper checking the room sounded in the corridor outside the door. It seems to be checking other people's rooms. Pei Chuan looked at the door with an unchanged expression and said, if I let the ward inspector in, what do you think will happen? Shuna's face changed and she said, no. Dr. Shuna's reverence for you +10. Chapter 10. If you want to learn, I can teach you. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The rules of Pangshan Hospital are very strict. There is an apartment rule downstairs in the apartment. The constraints in the rules are not only aimed at new interns, but also at restraining medical staff. If Pei Chuan lets the rounds in, she will be completely ruined. The person conducting the rounds will not punish Pei Chuan, but will also apologize. Because according to the regulations of the apartment, the person who stays in the VIP suite is a hospital VIP. If a VIP is injured or in danger, it indicates that there is a problem with the hospital's protection, and the dean will also be furious. Anyone who breaks the rules of the hospital, whether hired externally or within the hospital, will be punished. If that incident is found again, Pei Chuan looked at Shu Na with a smile on his face and said, "No." Shuna's face changed slightly, and she inexplicably felt panic and unease. Suddenly, she had a feeling of being interrogated. Pei Chuan said, "Did you do something shameful?" "Only. Not really." Shuna turned her head to one side. She couldn't look directly at Pei Chuan's gaze. Pei Chuan's eyes were bright, wise and sharp, as if he could see through her inner thoughts. Your ghost detective profession has mastered the rhythm, talent points +10, ghost detective skill mastery +10, reverence from Dr. Shuna +10, why is there blood on your skirt? Pei Chuan said with a sharp gaze. Is there blood? Dr. Shuna lowered her head and found a small blood stain on the hem of her skirt. Oh no, how could she be so careless? It's that guy's blood. Don't panic yet, it's not a big deal to have blood stains. Shuna comforted herself, as she had confirmed the environment in the hallway before anyone could take action. Dr. Pei cannot see it. That's here, Dr. Shuna explained in panic. Sometimes it is normal for side leaks to stick to clothes. Although it's a bit difficult to say this in front of a man. But to get rid of suspicion, she can go all out. Pei Chuan's nose twitched slightly, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he said, "You took a chilled red drink from the freezer in the cafeteria at night. If you come there, you probably won't be able to drink ice." Shuna's face changed slightly, she didn't expect Pei Chuan to remember even what drinks she drank in the cafeteria. "I didn't know I was here at the cafeteria, so I drank it." Shu Na quickly explained. A person's expression and insincerity when lying are particularly evident. Pei Chuan's ability to remember this detail relies on the ability of the ghost detective profession to recall memories. This skill allows the scenes he has experienced to be reproduced in his mind like movie scenes, and he can once again perceive the people and things in those scenes. "You're lying," Pei Chuan said coldly. The skill of detecting lies can accurately determine whether the target is lying. "I don't have it," Shuna said. Pei Chuan's invisible surgical knife slightly increased its strength. The cold and intense pain in her neck made Shuna hesitant to move. "At night in the cafeteria, you were staring straight at the intern in the second consultation room. You came out of his dormitory," Pei Chuan said. The sniffing nose skill detected the scent of blood stains on Shuna's skirt, which came from the shirt man in the second consultation room. Dr. Shuna slowly turned her head and looked at Pei Chuan incredulously. Your ghostly detective profession's reasoning shocked Dr. Shuna, talent points +10, detective skills +10, awe from Shuna +10, looking at the floating prompt box, Pei Chuan smiled slightly. Even without any prompts, he could still see the shock in Shuna's heart from her expression. "If nothing unexpected happens, the intern doctor won't be able to see the sun tomorrow," said Pei Chuan. Dr. Shu's face turned extremely pale. She thought she had achieved flawless results. There will definitely be no trace left on site. Even if the rounds enter, they won't find any clues. But Pei Chuan could infer from a small blood stain on her that she had been to the dormitory of the intern, and his words also concluded that the intern was unlucky. Is Pei Chuan a doctor or a detective? Your ghost detective professional ability has been demonstrated, with talent points +10, detective skills +10, and reverence from Dr. Shuna +10, breaking the rules, breaking into apartments, committing murder for one's own selfish desires. Your ghost detective profession inference is full of sharpness, talent points +10, detective skills +10, reverence from Dr. Shuna +10, Dr. Shuna's face turned extremely pale. There are many patients at Pei Chuan Hospital, and the hospital is in urgent need of doctors. If you let the dean know that new interns disappear in this way, do you think the dean will spare you? Dar. Shuna's face changed greatly. The human in front of her could make her tremble. It seems that nothing can escape his eyes. Pei Chuan was not wrong. The doctors at Pei Chuan Hospital are understaffed. The dean's repeated external recruitment and invitations aim to retain more doctors in the hospital. If the new intern doctor was punished for making a mistake, it indicates that the doctor's ability is not good and they have no connection with the Pei Chuan Hospital. But if the intern goes missing due to someone breaking the rules, the dean will not forgive him. In fact, breaking the rules and teaching interns lessons is not just something she has done, many doctors have also done it, but it was all done secretly without a clear understanding. If this matter were brought to the forefront, its nature would be completely different. Damn it. Dr. Shuna didn't expect Pei Chuan to be so powerful. She is now being held hostage by Pei Chuan and dare not resist at all. This human being may really do things like flushing the sewer when he is ruthless. You don't need to be angry with me. Registering is the patient's choice. If it affects your commission, then you can come to my consultation room tomorrow and be my assistant, Pei Chuan said calmly. Indeed, she was angry because the patient cancelled her registration. I originally wanted to vent in the conference room, but I didn't expect to touch a nose of dust, causing her to become depressed and irritable. Zhaozuiyuan.com Actually, she has always been very gentle, but recently she has been inexplicably irritable and easily angry. Being your assistant. Shuna looked surprised. She thought Pei Chuan would hand her over to the dean, at least making her pay a heavy price. Surprisingly, she was asked to work as an assistant in his clinic. Today, she also saw the strength of Dr. Pei, and his medical skills were beyond her reach. The dean asked me to teach Eileen, and you also learned well together, Pei Chuan smiled lightly. Are you going to teach me medicine? Shuna looked shocked. Why, are you very skilled in medicine? No, not really. Shuna didn't know for a moment what Pei Chuan really wanted to do. Pei Chuan's expression didn't seem like he was joking. Dr. Pei's medical skills can be said to be at the pinnacle, even the dean personally persuaded Dr. Pei. If Dr. Pei can impart her medical skills selflessly, one day she will also have Dr. Pei's top-notch medical skills. At that time, she no longer had to look at others and act, nor did she have to be indecisive, nor did she have to do some unseen things. If you want to learn, I can teach you, Pei Chuan said sincerely. Your professional spirit, professional ethics, and professional ethics are perfectly reflected, talent point +30, ghost detective skill +30, Dr. Shuna's reverence for you has transformed into admiration, admiration +30. Shuna's face was moved, and there was suddenly something sparkling in her eyes. At this moment, everything in the room seemed to have come to a standstill. Shuna leaned back on the big bed with her head tilted back. Pei Chuan held a surgical knife and pressed it against Shuna's neck, with the other hand in her pocket. She bent her right foot forward and leaned forward.